Because malignant narcissists dehumanize the people with whom they associate, their relationships are truly toxic. Clients with family members who display these qualities would be well advised to break off all ties to avoid being the target of evil intent. Welcome to Conversations with My Psychologist, a podcast on how to be a better you by understanding yourself and your relationships. I am joined every week by my psychologist, Dr. Hallie Frank, a therapist of over 50 years. Dr. Frank was chief clinical psychologist at McGill University Mental Health Services for many years. In addition to this, she worked in the clinical psychology department at Concordia University, where she conducted graduate-level seminars on theoretical models of behavior change, as well as supervisory groups on short-term therapy. In today's episode, we will be focusing on narcissism. That is, the difficult ways in which narcissism can show up in the people with whom we share our lives. Given that Dr. Frank's book was the inspiration for this podcast, I'd like to start by asking Dr. Frank a few questions on this. Welcome, Dr. Frank.
Thank you for having me.
Could you start us off by telling us where the idea came from for this book?
As I've grown older and hopefully wiser, conversations with clients, friends, and colleagues often prompted me to reiterate perspectives about the difficulties people experience as a result of their dynamics, as if these observations contained some fundamental truths that I could share based on these reflections about human nature. And my goal in this volume was to illuminate some of the blind spots that promote or prolong emotional pain.
There is one chapter in particular that touched me personally, is the one on severing ties with families. I have severed ties with my father, who is a malignant narcissist. Could you speak to us a little bit about what it is to be a malignant narcissist and the impacts that an individual like that might have on someone's life?
I'm going to back up a bit. Narcissism is not a catch-all phrase. There are people that are very narcissistic, but they're not malignant in the sense that they're placing their own needs above others, but they're not doing it with evil intent. They're just extremely self-centered. A non-malignant narcissist is doing what they do to raise their own self-esteem, and it's often at the expense of other people. Whereas a malignant narcissist is someone who has more severe pathology. Eric Fromm first coined the term, and he said malignant narcissism was the root of the most vicious destructiveness and inhumanity. So the point is, malignant narcissism can dehumanize the people with whom we associate, and the relationships become truly toxic. Whereas a non-malignant narcissist is not out to dehumanize anybody. They're just very self-centered, and as a result, the person feels as if the recipient feels as if their own needs are not being addressed.
So, what you're saying is that narcissism, it's not one thing. Negative traits are different from one person to another?
Yes, and I don't think as I said, I don't think it's a uniform diagnosis. Look, the point is, we're talking really about what constitutes a toxic relationship. And in a toxic relationship, whether it's with a friend or certainly with a family member, you end up feeling very depleted and diminished by the relationship. Now, sometimes you can sort of get a perspective and understand that the person is grandiose and trying to boost their own self-esteem, and they're not doing it in order to deplete you, but that still winds up how they're making you feel. In those cases, as a therapist, I've often encouraged people to not sever all their ties with the so called narcissist, but to try to get some kind of perspective where you say to yourself, oh my goodness, there he goes again, building himself up, and as a consequence, putting me down.